CFA Nation, Gabe, and I'm here today to bring you guys another installment of Cricket Convos. Now, I thought long and hard about this, and I was going to do R3 wickets for Australia versus New Zealand, but the week got away from us. We had a lot of things to do, and literally I was gonna record it that night, but I was so upset. I was like, nah, let me not just do this, do it another day. To make a long story short though, that loss really just stuck with me, and I had to think about that for a few days. I went to the point where that same night I'm researching what's going on, and if you look online, you realize just there's a whole bunch of turmoil going on around the Australian cricket team, okay? National Australian cricket team. And that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? Australia's woes, all right? That's the topic of this video. Australia's woes, their recent woes. I mean, and I say recent because Australia is a proud franchise, okay? Dominant franchise, synonymous with cricket, okay? They've been up there for a very long time, along with the likes of India and of course England as the three premier cricketing nations. Okay, let's just put that out there right now. But anyone who's been watching cricket this year, specifically this year, and has been following this Australian team, can't tell me that it is what it is. This is the product you put on the field. That's not. Come on, guys. Let's just be real. And over the last specifically, I'd say 6 months to a year, this last year of cricket has been so rough for Australian national team. They've only got a positive record in ODI. Where they beat England in England 2-1 and then beat India 2-1. But I mean, if we look at their record, they beat England 2-1, lost to India 2-1, and are now losing to New Zealand 2-0, 184, 1-5 in that first T20 game. They lost by 53 runs, got smacked. And then that 219, 215 game where it came down to the wire. And I mean, there were some bad breaks, right? That ball that the umpire deflected that surely would have been a 4 ends up only going for a single. That's 3 runs right there, okay? And the inexplicable decision of Aaron Finch to decide to not bring in Mitchell Marsh had scored 45 runs in that first test match, right? Batting at 4. And then here he inexplicably brings in Ashton Agar, who's dismissed on a duck, and brings in Mitchell Marsh at, 6, 7? I'm like, it's beyond me. I have no idea what Finch was thinking. But I think that's more to the point of this video. There's a lot of, it starts at the top, guys. It starts at the top. And honestly, if you just type in Justin Langer into Google, the first things that come up, first 2 stories that come up, top stories, 12 hours ago, Nathan Lyons has no issues with Coach Langer. All right. Next one, it hurts. Langer on emotional toll of Australian head coach. Those are the first 2 stories that come out 12 and 13 hours ago. After that, it's a wake-up call. Not going to ignore the stuff under fire. Obviously, if you go to Cricket Australia, they talk about how the Australian selection team was, the Australian media was dumbfounded that they left off Uzi off this team. And of course, there's listen, he's left off of every single format. Really? This is one of your better batsmen. And of course, there's a personal issue there between Uzi and Justin Langer. They had some type of falling out where it comes down to coaching, guys, and it starts at the top, okay? Now, I'm not attacking Justin Langer personally, but I've been a fan of, for instance, the Knicks for a very, very long time. And the Knicks have had talent. They've had some of the best coaching ever. But you got to have talent. And if you're, as Justin Langer, leaving off a player that could help you win because of pride, because of a personal vendetta, then you're doing your team a disservice. That's just the bottom line. And don't tell me coaches don't do that, because we just had that same scenario in the NFL. Bill Belichick, one of the most celebrated coaches of all time, one of the most winningest coaches of all time, basically said, you know what, we don't need Brady. He's not worth the money. He goes ahead, lets Brady go. Brady goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who hadn't won a championship in the last literally 2 decades, haven't been to the playoffs in the last decade. Brady goes year 1 and gets him a ring. Bill, not even a playoff sniff. All right. So as great as you may be as a coach, you still need those players. And I think that in this day and age, part of the coach's job is to be able to relate to these players. Okay. I remember watching in the docu-series, The Test, how Justin Langer was so, I don't know, dumbfounded with the fact that he had like Martin Loboshank playing video games and stuff like that. He's like, well, what? That's this generation. Tweeting, texting, that's this generation. And you got to be able to relate to your players. I think that's a coach's number one job, be able to relate to your players, because once your players don't trust you, they're not going to fight for you. They're not going to go out there and die for you. And that's just the reality. And if anyone tells me he hasn't lost players on this team, then I would tell you, check again and check all those stories. I can guarantee you he's lost players on this team by some of his decision-making, by honestly some of his choices. You know, one of the things we did get to see on The Test was how he used to talk to players about it just being white noise, right? Not paying attention to the media, not paying attention to the noise. But yet you see that he actually, that's the noise gets to him when the media is reporting about Langer management, and he's kicking trash cans over and you know, he's getting all upset, and the players are like, well, you got to practice what you preach, you know, and that's a way that you lose players. That is a way that you lose players. There's an article about how he's had some issues with some of the stronger personalities in the team, including Uzi, because they tell him how it is. Like, look, this is how it is. Now, you can't think it's a one-way street. This isn't high school ball. This isn't college ball. These are professional athletes. Many of these athletes make more money than the coaches. And we have the same thing happening here in the States, in America, where some of these coaches that are lauded in college, you know, come to the pros and struggle because they realize, listen, you're dealing with a pro athlete. This is a professional. This is how he gets paid. You know, you're not dealing with a child. You're not dealing with, you got to respect that person as a man as well. And I think that, you know, some of these older coaches have a tough time doing that. Not all. There's some coaches that are really, really good about that and managing personalities. They're good at adapting. There are others that don't. Okay, Andy Reid's a perfect example with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, went from the Eagles to the Chiefs. Andy Reid's what you call a player's coach. And despite everything else, Andy Reid's the guy's gonna go out there, I remember, and make a bet with T.O. when T.O. was on the team. If T.O. caught 16 touchdowns, he would go out there in a cat suit. Can you imagine Andy Reid in a cat suit? But that's what I'm saying. Like, he's personable. You don't want to have that coach that's so tough that you're walking around on eggshells all the time. Because when things go wrong, and they will inevitably, they're gonna go wrong at some point. That's just that's just how it goes, right? Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. You got to have a coach that's going to keep this team together. And that's not what I see. Okay. 36 all out, right? Versus India at home. And literally it's been a whitewash after that. They can't buy a win. That's how bad it is. Whether, it was, of course, India won the next 3 at home. Now in this T20 match versus New Zealand. And whatever's going wrong, you cannot tell me that there are not issues at the top that need to be addressed. Okay. Now, yes, some of the players aren't performing, and people are going to say, Langer can't make Maxey live up to his contract. He can't make them play better. Yeah, but players also know who they're going to go all out for and who they're not. And if I don't buy your philosophy and I don't buy into you, I'm going to go out there and play. But I'm telling you, I know it firsthand. Here's the thing. I've coached before, and obviously at a way lower level, club sports, high school sports, all right? I have both my boys play high school sports. One's playing college sports right now. I come from a sporting family. And coaching issue is not something that's new, all right? next to hating umpires, coaches has been one of the, and even though I was a coach, I've had so many issues with in the past because coaches do have egos. Show me a coach without an ego, and I'll show you somebody's not a coach. Every single coach has an ego. All right, I had an ego, but it's so hard for them to check it because they always want things just to be there one way. And I think that that's the biggest flaw coaches have, because you have to be able to adapt. All right, you have to be able to adapt to the personnel you get. And if your players, you know, for whatever reason, don't respond to your approach, then you need to go ahead and change that approach. And I think that's where Langer is struggling. Again, that's just my opinion from an outside observer, from the outside looking in. But again, I'm just looking at, okay, let's just talk about the Australian Test team record for a second, okay? And in the last year, okay, of course, the tour of India, we know what just happened, right? 2-1. They canceled against Bangladesh, and then they had well, that's 2019, 2020. They won at New Zealand, the Trans-Am Trophy. They won against Pakistan. They drew the Ashes, against England, obviously in England. They won against Sri Lanka. This is not a team that loses. The next loss, you got to go back to 2018, 2019 against India. All right. This is a team that is proud. This is a team that has a winning tradition. You can't tell me they've been playing winning cricket in the last 6 months. You can't. You just can't. And that's one of the things where you have to sit back and say, okay, what's the issue? What's going on? And I can only say what I see. I see players that keep getting put on this team despite better players being out there like Uzi. Okay, that's one issue right there. And yes, I fell in love with him on the show The Test. I love his attitude. I love his bravado. You know, he's putting up numbers. That's something you can't deny. But that's one issue, right? The next issue is what's not being addressed. Aaron Finch being the captain of the T20 squad. And I'm like, Aaron Finch isn't producing. Aaron Finch is just not producing, guys. Look at his last 10 innings. So far in 2021, he scored a grand total in 2 innings of 13 runs. 13 runs. I repeat, 13 runs. In 2020, he scored 271 runs. 271 runs. In the last 10 innings, he has scored less than 30 runs a game. And that's the captain? I understand captaincy has to be more than just putting up runs, but you can't get a couple half centuries there. Seriously, a century? Come on. That's just unacceptable, man. And again, he's still there when there's other guys that are producing and aren't there. You got to have players, I'm sure, looking at him saying like, dude, how long are you going to stick with this guy? Or at the very minimum, drop him from the opening spot. You know what I'm saying? But it just doesn't happen. So I think that, again, some of the problems Australia has starts off at the top, guys. And maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm overreacting. But as an Australia fan, are you used to this kind of losing streak? Are you used to this kind of cricket being played? Lazy cricket. Go back to that fielding gaffe, I should say, in that first innings by Maxey when Richardson, right? A ball gets crushed. It splits the defense. Richardson runs, smacks it back in, and it just hits Maxwell's hand instead of saving it at that point. It hits the boundary. Just a lazy approach. All the drop catches. Is this what you're used to? Come on, let's just be candid, guys. You know it's not. And something's got to change. Something's got to change. It's got to change at the top. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. That just can't happen. I think my final thoughts on this is Justin Langer came in at a very, very tough time in Australia. He came over, right, and took over right after a huge scandal, okay? That cannot be easy. And they owe him a lot of gratitude. And I'm not even saying he needs to be sacked, although the conversation is out there. And you go online, look it up. It's in the Twitter sphere. But what I'm saying is something's got to change. Maybe he's got to change his approach. He himself has admitted the pressure of coaching 3 different international teams is tough. Maybe he needs to bring in some help, but something has got to change. Australia owes him a debt of gratitude for leading the team out of those dark days right after that the sandpaper incident, right? And in South Africa. But that's in the mirror. That's in the past, right? Sports is all about what have you done for me lately? And lately, you're not leading us to wins, and we need it fixed. I mean, guys, those are just some of my thoughts. Please be kind in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. If you think I'm completely off base, then all right, I'm completely off base. Tell me why though, and tell me what you think the issue is. Then, if it's the case, then if it's not Langer, what is it? Why is this team struggling? All right, guys. As always, thank you so much. If you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to also smash that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And until next time, that's 6 runs.